This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories the fantastic. Welcome to Camp Myth. Chapter 14, December 25th, 2013. Merry Christmas, campers, and welcome back. Are you ready for Chapter 14? Last week, Althea the Sphinx posed a riddle our campers couldn't refuse, and only Felix's quick thinking saved them from being Sphinx food. But what was that Althea said about Moxie? Listen close, campers. Where were we? Ah, yes.
Camp Myth, Phoenix Watching, by Chris Lewis Carter. Chapter 14. We spent a few minutes picking our way north in silence before I finally worked up the nerve to speak. Moxie?
Yeah?
When Althea said...
I don't want to talk about it.
But why would she... Moxie snapped off a low-hanging bough and tossed it at my feet.
Just leave it alone, Felix. Please.
And that was that. As it turned out, though, Althea had given us solid information. Before long, we came across another clearing with a large sycamore tree growing near the centre. Resting high in the branches was a pile of rocks that were fused together in the shape of a rounded bowl.
No doubt about it. That belongs to a phoenix,
Argy said, holding up his copy of the handbook to compare our nest with an official photograph.
But what's the red thing sitting inside it?
He was right. Directly in the middle of the nest was a round object that looked similar to a stoked coal. Is that? I took a few steps closer to the tree. I think it's an egg. Archie flipped to another page and nodded.
You're right. It says here that phoenixes are fiercely protective of their young, though, so they never leave eggs alone for very long.
Well, how about we just wait here until the mama comes back, I suggested. I've always wanted to see one up close. He shook his head.
Not a good idea. Phoenixes can be fickle in the best of times if we're caught hanging around the egg.
Moxie laughed.
What, we'll get a stern lecture? These birds don't have inferno feathers, remember? At most, we'll just get squawked at.
A mischievous grin crossed her face.
I want to check it out.
Before either of us could respond, Moxie took a running head start and clambered up the side of the tree. Apparently, she was a more than capable climber in both of her forms. In a flash, she was sitting on the same branch as the nest. Are you sure this isn't some kind of fox instinct kicking in? I called. Just promise me that you're not going to eat it.
You Fae are always so hilarious,
she replied, peering down at the egg with interest.
It's actually giving off a lot of heat. I can feel it on my face from here.
Be careful not to touch it,
Argy said.
The handbook says that eggs can reach temperatures of up to 200 degrees. That's why phoenixes have to build their nests out of rocks.
I scanned the forest for any other signs of movement. Okay, great. We've all learned something today. Now, how about you take a picture of it so we can finally head back to camp? Moxie pulled out her Myth army knife and began to fumble around with the various attachments.
All right, fine. Just let me find the camera thingy again.
And that was when I heard a rustling sound coming from the trees behind me and felt a sudden spike in the temperature of the clearing. Instinctively, I shouted, "Moxie, get down!" just as a fireball shot through the air and missed her face by a matter of inches. Although it hadn't connected, the surprise attack was still enough to startle her off balance, and she fell out of the sycamore tree with a thud. The fireball connected with another tree across the clearing and exploded into cinders. I whipped around to find the source of the blast, then stumbled backward in shock because the creature perched in the treetops was at once the most beautiful and grotesque thing I'd ever seen. It was a phoenix, that much was certain, about the size of a hawk, with plumage coloured like shimmering flames and 3 long tail feathers that looped and curled like fiery whips. But this phoenix had clearly been the victim of a vicious attack only minutes beforehand. It was covered with blood that sizzled and crackled as it dripped onto the tree, and it was missing its left eye. Its right wing was also badly mangled to the point where I was amazed that it was able to fly at all. It clung to the branch with a wobbling determination that was almost unnerving. Moxie scrambled to her feet and hid behind the sycamore tree.
That's impossible,
she said.
It shouldn't be able to shoot fire.
Well, apparently nobody told it that, I snapped. Argy looked as though he was going to have another of his panic fits.
What could have done this?
He said.
Phoenixes don't have any predators in the wild.
Unfortunately, this phoenix wasn't interested in waiting for us to come up with answers to those questions. Before any of us could say another word, it let out an angry screech and took flight, circling the perimeter of the clearing. Its busted wing fluttered awkwardly with every beat. About halfway through the second lap, it screeched again and launched a barrage of fiery feathers. I dove for cover as the plume hit the ground like bits of shrapnel. Thankfully, the phoenix's injury seemed to be throwing off its aim, because all of us survived the attack without being hit.
Come on, we've got to move!
Moxie shouted.
Out the way we came! Go, go, go!
We made a bolt for the trampled brush that marked our entrance, but the creature was one step ahead of us. Its tail feathers ignited like dynamite fuses, and a massive glowing ball of energy materialized. The phoenix hurled the ball in front of us, where it burst into a geyser of flame that ignited the nearby trees. Within moments, the entire clearing was banded with fire. The three of us ran back and crowded together by the sycamore, surrounded by heat and thick smoke, as the phoenix continued its route along the outer edge of the tree line. Being close to the flames seemed to give the bird a second wind, and it screeched wildly, as though it was building up for something even more devastating.
Well, I never thought I'd die at summer camp,
Argy said, as a large tear slid down the side of his face.
Great, now I'm crying. A Cyclops is supposed to face his death with dignity, and I can't even do that right.
Moxie reached over and squeezed his shoulder, then forced a weak smile.
We promise not to tell if you don't.
The phoenix's tail feathers began to glow a brilliant red, and it started flying faster than ever before, leaving a trail of luminous energy in its wake. With each new circle, the creature flew higher, and the energy grew thicker, until it had surrounded us with the mystical substance. Once the barrier was complete, the phoenix launched one last ball of fire into its creation. And then, like a lit match tossed against a wall of gasoline, everything started burning. We were caught inside a tornado of flame that was over 10 feet high, a whirling column of magical power that offered no chance of escape. Just as it seemed as though things couldn't get any worse, the ignited energy began to close in around us, roaring like some horrible demonic force. As for what happened next, well, I honestly don't know why I decided to do it. Maybe it was some of the same boldness that made me leap to save a strange Cyclops from falling out of a bus, or the stubbornness that wouldn't allow me to back down from Brontes. Perhaps it was a sense of confidence that stemmed from answering a Sphinx's riddle. Or maybe I was simply too scared to watch my friends die. Whatever the reason, something inside my head was telling me to shield Argy and Moxie from the cone of flame, that it was more than the right thing to do, it was the only thing to do. And so, before either of them could stop me, I stepped forward and outstretched my arms to block as much of the blaze as I could.
Get back! No! Stop! Felix!
But it was already too late. Within seconds, the fire completely enveloped me. I watched it dance across my uniform, felt it merge with my body, my mind, my core. Every part of me was consumed within the inferno. There was no turning back from this. With the screams of Argy and Moxie still ringing in my ears, I closed my eyes, and I was gone.
This week's Camper Spotlight is on Ponyta and Kuru and their legendary love. Felix says, for a centaur, there's no greater show of trust and respect than to allow a two-legger on his back. I guess Ponyta must be head over hooves in love with his girlfriend, Kuru, the Kasune, because they're practically inseparable from one another. He even asked me to draw a picture of him doing something nice for her, so he could give it to her as a present. That's like 2 layers of niceness. Ponyta and Kuru were invented by Ahmed Al-Mutawa and Kholoud Al-Zabi. You can find their picture on the Camp Myth webpage. Campers, we hope you're enjoying your Christmas, and Cast of Wonders could use your help. We love bringing you free stories week after week, but without you, we just can't do it. Please consider donating at castofwonders.org, where you'll find buttons for regular and one-time donations via PayPal. Or help spread the word about our Camp Myth project and our weekly stories every Sunday by blogging or tweeting about us, writing us a review on iTunes, or liking our Facebook page. There's lots of ways you can show your love for our tales of the fantastic. Camp Myth Phoenix Watching is a Cast of Wonders production brought to you by Wolfsbane Publishing and featuring the voice talent of Kate Baker, Adam Black, Tina Connolly, Graham Dunlop, Christina Ellis, Marguerite Kenner, Alethea Contis, Alistair Stewart, Ian Stewart, and Barry J. Northern. You can learn more about the world of Camp Myth at our website, castofwonders.org. Our episodes are released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Share it every week, but please don't change it or sell it. The Camp Myth theme music, August, is by our favorite musical artist, Alexei Nov, from musicalley.com. Thanks for listening.